What makes me even more proud is the fact that you actually, can you believe this, won the Princess Trust Young Achiever of the Year award for the Pride of Britain.
From Pride of Britain. A secret decree just got signed. Come June 13th, the British monarchy will never look the same again. In one corner, Prince William bringing a cold, ruthless and highly ambitious modernization. In the other, Queen Camilla desperately fighting to protect her fading royal power. King Charles finally picked a side. One crown up for grabs, three massive egos clashing. The result, total shock. Look at William during that David Attenborough event. Pure ice. The dawn of a brutal new era has officially started. May 15th, 2026. The absolute dead silence inside Buckingham Palace right now is heavier than it has ever been. Outside, the spring sun shines beautifully. Inside the Windsor private apartments, a freezing, tense standoff has completely taken over. Forget managing boring old traditions. This family is right in the middle of a ruthless, high-stakes internal coup. London is gearing up for the massive Trooping the Colour on June 13th. But those cheers for the king, completely drowned out by the heavy, dominant footsteps of his ambitious heir. The air inside is literally choking with old secrets and razor-sharp new betrayal. Now pay close attention here. A decree leaked straight from the king's office, and its brutal precision changes the game entirely. It is a flawless surgical strike against Queen Camilla and her established power. Leading up to the king's 2026 birthday, everyone expected a heartwarming celebration of his pure resilience. King Charles III, fighting through brutal immunotherapy and experimental treatments, he looked like the ultimate symbol of stoic endurance. But when the May 15th deadline hit for the parade plans, the truth came out. His remaining strength had a brand new target entirely, fast-tracking Prince William to absolute total control. Those leaked documents gossiped about in Mayfair and confirmed by panicked royal insiders expose an absolutely massive, earth-shattering power shift inside the palace. For centuries, this birthday parade proved the reigning monarch had absolute control over the entire military force. But on June 13th, 2026, the whole world will watch that ancient history get completely rewritten. King Charles secretly signed an order handing over the keys to the kingdom straight to his son, even while still sitting on the throne. They will not officially call it a regency, but practically William is already ruling. The massive drama from this choice, impossible to hide behind closed palace doors anymore. The chaos is bleeding right into the hallways. Queen Camilla completely retreated in stunned isolation. Insiders claim her eyes are totally red, crying over this absolute deeply personal betrayal by the king. The very first public clue of this crazy new hierarchy dropped recently. Did you catch it? We both watched it happen during the May 11th celebration. Normally, for an event this huge, the king and queen attend together. Or at minimum, the queen consort steps up to represent her frail husband. Instead, Prince William totally stole center stage. Everyone watched in uncomfortable awe as he commanded the room with absolute ice-cold efficiency. He did not just attend, he ruled. His speech wasn't normal, it was a hardcore manifesto of royal intent. William's public appearances spiked 40% in just the first 2 weeks of May alone. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's events quietly and systematically stripped away, shoving her completely into the background. This massive power grab was no accident. A perfectly staged flex of who actually holds the scepter today. While the Queen was relegated to some tiny, irrelevant charity opening out in the suburbs, William was partying with elite politicians and scientists, practically crowned as the new face of Great Britain. 10 a.m. sharp today, dark-tinted SUVs stormed the Windsor Castle gates for a jaw-dropping secret meeting. This sealed the ultimate fate of the June parade. Elite internal sources, including guys incredibly close to the king's equerry, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, confirmed Charles just signed the final balcony position decree. This choice is literally a direct declaration of war against the Queen Consort's royal status. Charles finally realized his brutal health battle requires a much stronger, undeniable successor to take the lead. He just granted William absolute omnipotent representative power over everything, completely bypassing traditional palace rules. Which means, for the very first time in history, trust me, you and I are witnessing the prince completely take over the regiment inspection even while the king stands right there. Stick with me here. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson, known for his absolute loyalty to the king, is quietly telling his entire inner circle about the insane, never-before-seen tension following that signature. He's watching a king who looks physically broken right now, but is completely obsessed with tomorrow. Charles looks right at William and sees this ruthless decision-making, something the king famously lacked in his youth. The way Charles sees it, William is the hammer, and he is the anvil. Together they are violently forging a brand new monarchy. But honestly, the absolute worst hit to Queen Camilla's ego did not even come from William. It came straight from the king's decree about Catherine. Even with her own serious health battles and this highly calculated slow return to the spotlight, Catherine just received an unbelievable honor. The king personally greenlit her to wear the legendary Queen Mother's coronation necklace for the massive events on June 13th. Look, this is not just some shiny jewelry. This is basically a liquid crown. Historically speaking, this specific piece, an absolute diamond masterpiece from the 1937 coronation, is strictly saved for the Queen Consort. Or more importantly, a future queen, waiting in the wings during huge power shifts. By completely skipping over Camilla and handing this heirloom straight to Catherine, Charles is screaming to the world that Catherine is his absolute number one priority. She brings that pure stability he so desperately craves. Grant Harold, an ex-royal butler who still gets all the juicy palace gossip, points out that this one move completely shattered any peace between the Queen's team and the Wales camp. He literally called it a visual eviction to an insider. Now watch closely, because this gets wild. He is crowning the future queen right in front of the current one. That basically tells everyone the power shift is already done. As for Camilla, after spending literal decades battling for the public's love and climbing the palace ranks, she is now just forced to sit and watch her own absolute downfall. This massive, luxurious palace has turned into a golden prison. The locks were changed by the stepson she once viewed as just a successor who now fully acts as her superior. Everything is perfectly lined up for June 13th. But the real war for the crown is going down right now, hidden behind the king's experimental medical treatments and the freezing, dead-eyed stare of Prince William. The vibe inside those massive Windsor stone walls, it totally flipped from a quiet recovery zone into an absolute hardcore military command center. As May 15th, 2026 finally rolls around, the hardcore tension, tearing apart the two strongest factions inside the House of Windsor, is getting impossible to hide. While King Charles III remains the official head of state, the real heavy lifting of running this monarchy has completely passed right into Prince William's hands. This isn't just a loyal son helping his dad. This is a future king stamping down a leadership style that is incredibly ruthless, super fast, and totally uncompromising. Leaked secrets from the 2026 Regency Protocol basically confirm that the upcoming Trooping the Colour event will be the grand public reveal of this brutal, new, royal reality. I know what you are thinking. Palace veterans completely agree, calling Prince William's new posture hard and ice cold. Look, this is a man who saw the terrifying fragility of the crown over the last 2 years. He finally decided that soft feelings have absolutely zero place if this ancient institution is going to survive. Based on serious inside sources handling the sovereign grant, William just triggered a completely radical, earth shattering restructuring of all royal finances, pulling a power move that absolutely sent shockwaves tearing through the Queen's wing of the palace. William actually convinced the king to rip major funding right out of Queen Camilla's personal standalone projects. He claims it is just smart fiscal responsibility, but politically it is a brutally calculated strike to kill off Camilla's influence. William is completely laser focused on powering up the new core four. That is himself, Catherine, George, and Charlotte. By locking every resource around this core unit, he is basically starving the Queen's office, destroying the independence she spent literal years building up. Staffers who used to report straight to Camilla are watching their jobs get swallowed by a central Wales command. The prince believes the monarchy must be a super lean, modern machine. And inside this new machine, the Queen consort is basically seen as an outdated legacy part, definitely not driving them into the future. For Queen Camilla, this brutal betrayal is not just professional, it is incredibly deeply personal. People inside her tightest inner circle are whispering that the Queen is completely staggering from the King's harsh new decisions. The biggest visual proof of her getting pushed out. The brutal logistics for that huge June 13th procession. Historically, the Queen consort rides beside the sovereign in the absolute most prestigious royal carriage. But somehow the King, approving these 2026 carriage assignments, just threw Camilla straight into a nightmare of pure public humiliation. Instead of the legendary Gold State coach with Charles, she got shoved to the glass coach in the back. What do you and I take from this never-cross Prince William? But get this, stick with me here. She is stuck riding with Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. People think it is cute grandmother duty, but in royal terms, it is an absolute demotion. She is basically just a babysitter now, not a co-ruler. The King and William take the ultimate spotlight. They are creating this brutal visual narrative of pure succession that completely erases the Queen's actual importance. Insiders say Camilla was absolutely crushed by this reality, caught in super rare moments of totally shattered vulnerability. She finally realizes all her years of loyalty could not stop her from being pushed aside by the man she protected. William is acting as the hammer here, but Catherine, the Princess of Wales, she is the silent mastermind. Her public appearances are tightly controlled right now, but behind those palace doors, her power is absolute. Word is that Catherine threw her total stealthy support behind William's massive plan to gut the palace staff. They are literally calling this insane shakeup the May Purge. Hardcore loyalists who stood by Camilla during those brutal early years with Charles, they are all being coldly phased out one by one, swapped out for a younger, super tech-savvy crew that only answers directly to the Prince and Princess of Wales. Watch closely, because Catherine making these ruthless staff cuts shocked everyone, but it just proved her worth to Charles. The king sees her as the absolute peak of royal dignity. She gets that for the crown to survive. They have to be totally ruthless about upgrading the system. Backing William like this built an iron wall that Camilla has zero chance of breaking. Why did Charles let his son completely shadow the Queen? You have to look at the king's mental state hitting rock bottom in May 2026. Total exhaustion from intense medical treatments made his priorities crystal clear. Zero energy left for toxic palace politics. He realizes that public hype for William and Catherine is the only survival ticket for the House of Windsor. Behind closed doors, Charles sounds completely desperate to make sure the eventual power transfer goes off without a single hitch, handing William the massive parade spotlight and officially giving Catherine the royal jewels of a queen in waiting. It is him screaming to the entire world that the throne's future is locked in and completely secure. He will gladly sacrifice Camilla's status to make absolutely sure the crown itself does not collapse. He sees a cold steel in William that he never had, and he is betting the entire monarchy's legacy on that ruthlessness. With the king's birthday hype hitting maximum levels, the civil war inside the palace is totally undeniable. Palace staff are split right down the middle, terrified of the new bosses, or desperate to join William's elite squad. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson and Topai, military commanders, are actually taking direct orders from William's camp instead of the king's own secretary. This massive parade is not even about the king's birthday anymore. It is practically a shadow coronation for the new era. You can literally feel the tension vibrating through the ancient walls of Windsor and Buckingham Palace right now. And Camilla, just standing there completely alone, a queen, being slowly erased from existence right in front of her own family. You and I both know what is coming. The stage is perfectly set for a century-defining clash dropping on that balcony in exactly 29 days. Entering the crazy final weeks of May 2026, all this intense backroom plotting has finally unleashed the official 2026 Regency Protocol. Signed in total secrecy at Windsor, this heavy document is literally the biggest power shift we have seen in decades. They tell the public it is just to help a sick king rest, but that is a lie. The cold reality is a calculated power grab, heavily favoring the royal bloodline over the wife. This exact protocol legally anchors the insane June 13th showdown, and its brutal contents have completely frozen the relationship between the king's team and William's elite camp. The terrifying core of this protocol literally lets Prince William sign major state papers and run administrative moves entirely on the king's behalf. That kind of absolute power is usually locked down for the sovereign or state council. Giving William this solo cheat code basically upgrades him to the rank of full-blown co-monarch. This massive upgrade definitely triggered an explosive internal war. So what do we make of this, insiders say? William demanded even more power to control every royal hire. Wild right? Let's dive right into the royal drama. Charles is completely torn between his future vision and his wife. To soften the massive blow of William taking charge, the king secretly added rules to protect Camilla's image. The new royal rules state that while William holds all the actual administrative power, Camilla still plays the main host. She keeps running those fancy state dinners and diplomatic banquets. It takes serious social grace, something she has spent decades perfecting. This creates a totally bizarre, intense split. William runs the heavy machinery of the state, leaving Camilla stuck with just the ornamental court duties. The absolute wildest part of all this prep, how the family actually stands on that famous Buckingham Palace balcony. In this crazy world of royal rules, your distance from the king means absolutely everything. For the 2026 Trooping the Color King, Charles made a final plan. William stands directly at his right hand. That spot is usually meant just for the wife. Catherine stands to William's right. This creates a powerful central trio that the entire world will view as the monarchy's core. And Camilla. Despite being queen, she gets pushed to the king's left. They even left a huge awkward gap for military aids. Leaked inside diagrams actually show Catherine standing exactly 30 centimeters closer to the center than she did in past years. Watch closely, because this tiny change is a massive slap in the face. Charles chose the image of his heirs over his own wife. Now, Camilla feels her power fading fast, and no fancy dinner party can ever fix that. Things totally exploded when William reportedly demanded that Camilla's entire extended family be banned from the private royal VIP areas on June 13th. William's strict demand for a smaller core monarchy is super famous. But Charles thought this was just flat out cruel. Fighting back against his son, the king actually used a rare rule to force invites for Camilla's kids and grandkids. They get to attend the private events anyway. This huge rejection instantly sparked an absolute cold war between father and son. William thinks the Parker Bowles family is a massive distraction. He wants everyone looking at his modern, highly focused Windsor bloodline. Charles, meanwhile, sees them as Camilla's last emotional safety net in a totally hostile palace. This crazy fight over a simple guest list shows the bigger war happening inside. I know what you're thinking. It is wild. A son erasing the past while a father desperately tries to save his wife's legacy. As June 13th gets closer, the palace stops being a home. It becomes a brutal chessboard where every single move means absolute war. Entering the third week of May 2026, the royal transition flips from boring paperwork to a raw, intense display of pure military power. Trooping the color is basically a sacred bond between the king and the entire armed forces. But this 2026 version, they are completely redesigning it to show off a brand new era's commander. With Prince William watching every step, the rehearsals at Horse Guards Parade feel way darker and completely different. Gone is the happy celebration. Now it is just rigorous cold perfection. William demands insane precision, perfectly matching his own harsh new attitude. He is telling the top military brass that his era is all about hardcore discipline, not pretty ceremonies. The biggest shocker in centuries of history. The king is letting William handle the final inspection of the legendary household division. Historically, the actual monarch does this personally on horseback, proving they are the one in command. Even Queen Elizabeth II stayed the main focus of the inspection when she used a carriage late in life. In 2026, even with King Charles sitting right there, William is the one riding out to face the army. This one specific choice has the old guard of the household cavalry absolutely losing their minds in secret. Having the Prince of Wales inspect everything while the king just watches is basically a giant visual surrender of absolute power. It is heavy symbolism. William's office planned this perfectly, making sure the entire world sees a prince who is already in absolute total control. For Camilla, stuck watching these intense rehearsals from the sidelines, seeing William take the king's spot during the most sacred ceremony proves her own power is vanishing into thin air. She is no longer the partner of a powerful king. She is just watching a ruthless successor rise up, ready to completely replace everyone in his path. The drama spikes even higher thanks to serious lingering worries about the household cavalry's actual reliability. So, what do you and I make of this? Especially after escaped horses caused absolute chaos back in April 2025. Stick with me, the safety of this procession just triggered an absolute war. Queen Camilla, famous for her razor-sharp eye and crazy attention to detail, keeps raising massive red flags about the animals picked for the June 13th parade. Specifically, she is doubting the readiness of two horses, Tennyson and Trojan. These two horses were in that last messy incident, but they are still scheduled to return for the king's massive birthday celebration. But her demands met with absolute chilling silence from the Prince of Wales and his entire team. William stepped up. He took personal control of the military liaison, making it crystal clear that his office fully backs the commanders on the ground. Camilla tried to intervene, claiming to protect the king's safety, but they completely dismissed her as just unnecessary interference, being totally sidelined in major security matters. This used to be her territory. Now losing that grip is the ultimate proof of her falling status. She is literally a spectator in her own family's massive affairs. All this internal friction has sparked a heavy, undeniable vulnerability deep inside the Windsor family. Since both the King and the Princess of Wales are recovering, the palace's reliance on William has become absolutely total. That heavy dependence just handed the prince insane leverage, and he is actively using it to completely rewrite the core rules of royal duty. Watch closely now. He isn't asking for permission anymore. He's issuing absolute directives. And Catherine's role in this massive military shift, equally huge. Even while recovering, she has been totally hands-on in strategy briefings for her top honorary role with the Irish Guards. Standing right there next to William during these intense sessions, they look absolutely unstoppable. A totally unified, iron-willed powerhouse couple. Together they are putting up a massive impenetrable front that the Queen Consort just cannot break through. Caught right between his tough physical limits and desperately wanting the monarchy to survive, the king practically surrendered all daily military management straight to his son. This massive shift guarantees that on June 13th, the crowd won't just cheer for a birthday. They will be screaming for the arrival of a brand new, uncompromising reign. As May 2026 finally hits its absolute last stretch, mapping out the journey from Buckingham Palace to Horse Guards Parade, just exposed the insane reality of this massive hierarchy shift. In high stakes royal protocol, the exact vehicle you sit in is basically a giant screaming public declaration of your actual rank. For this upcoming June 13th event, deciding who gets which carriage literally turned into the ultimate weapon. A silent, brutal war between rival palace factions. King Charles himself, heavily swayed by Prince William's fierce new strategy, officially approved a seating chart that basically kicks Queen Camilla right out of the spotlight. A total visual eviction. The absolute wildest detail from this leaked transport plan, they handed the legendary glass state coach directly to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This specific carriage, famous for massive royal weddings and that stunning see-through design, is literally one of the most beloved top-tier icons in the entire royal fleet. You and I both see the play here. Putting Catherine and her kids in that glass, it is a moving showcase of the future. The message is completely unmistakable. Catherine is now the absolute shining jewel of this monarchy. That clear glass guarantees that every single camera and cheering spectator will stay fully locked onto her and those young royals. It essentially turns the whole procession into a massive coronation of her absolute popularity. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla got dropped right into a completely secondary position. Yeah, she is still riding in the Grand Parade, but stuffing her into a much less important vehicle. Plus, the king has to travel separately in a heavily armored closed-off carriage for his health. So, what does that mean? It leaves her completely isolated. She is definitely not the main character of this parade anymore. Instead, they downgraded her to a supporting role, just trailing awkwardly behind the glowing, untouchable image of the Princess of Wales. Palace insiders are already whispering that Camilla saw this exact carriage assignment as a brutal, totally deliberate snub, a sneaky technicality designed to shrink her presence before the global media. Right now, the vibe down in the stables and official offices is completely frozen in this tense, guarded neutrality. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Thompson, the guy who has been a total rock for the king, is suddenly walking through a massive political minefield. His job now forces him to coordinate with Prince William's squad constantly. People close to the colonel are leaking the truth. This massive shift in command is absolute. Direct orders that used to come straight from the Queen's secretary, they are getting heavily vetted and totally shut down by William's team. Staff members who served Camilla for literal decades are definitely sensing the dark end of an era. There is this heavy dark realization sinking in. The Queen's total grip over the palace's daily operations, it has completely evaporated into thin air. So what do you and I make of this? Even when Camilla tried pushing for a schedule change, just to be seen next to the king at those key junctions. Her immediate request absolutely rejected by the Royal Planning Committee. They called it operational efficiency, but the hidden meaning was brutal. William owns the schedule now, and the Crown Prince is strictly prioritizing his own household. The heavy psychological blow to the Queen Consort has hit an absolute breaking point. Now listen closely. Camilla never shows a single drop of weakness in public, but those ancient palace walls are paper thin, and the whispers are spilling out. Reports are exploding that the Queen is locking herself inside her private rooms, refusing to see anyone except her most loyal dressers. These are not just the tears of a hurt woman. No, these are the bitter tears of a master strategist who just got completely outplayed. She fought an exhausting 30-year war just to win over the public and the royal elites, only to realize that at the very end of her husband's reign, they are treating her like a temporary guest. The brutal reality of this 2026 monarchy: there is only room for one true queen inside the hearts of the people. And Charles just made it obvious he chose Catherine. With the grand carriages being polished for June 13th, the Queen Consort is slamming into the darkest, most difficult realization of her entire royal life. They are quietly forcing her into the shadows, even while she still has the actual crown sitting on her head. The massive stage for trooping the color is finally set. And for Camilla, it is turning into an incredibly lonely battlefield. As the clock counts down to June 13th, 2026, this event has transformed from a simple birthday party into an absolute cutthroat power play. The shocking events of these past few weeks have completely rewritten the hidden laws of the House of Windsor, proving without a doubt that true power has slipped from the older generation straight into the iron grip of Prince William. This final prep stage is not about practicing marches anymore. It is all about cementing a brand new royal legacy. London is covered in flags, but behind closed doors at the palace, the mood is a cold, calculated, and clinical transition. The royal family stepping onto that iconic balcony this June is a much sharper, deadlier, and more focused machine than before. The absolute peak of this day will be the moment the family steps out onto that iconic Buckingham Palace balcony. Don't blink, because here is where it gets crazy. In this 2026 drama, where these royals physically stand, screams louder than any statement. King Charles has completely confirmed the central placement of Prince William, directly at his own immediate side. That tiny 30-centimeter shift in positioning, it is a massive permanent declaration of intent. To the millions watching the global broadcast, the image is going to look exactly like a dual monarchy. William is standing tall, absolutely unyielding. He will not look like a guy waiting for his turn on the throne. He will look like the man who is already ruling. Catherine, holding perfect regal poise right next to him, completes this new royal core. Her spot as the beloved center of the entire event. Dripping in the Queen Mother's legendary jewels is the absolute final nail in the coffin of the old palace hierarchy. And Queen Consort Camilla, she is getting shoved straight to the outer edges. You and I both know how brutal that is. She will keep her cool, but the visuals do not lie. She is effectively erased into the background, just watching the future take over. This is the grand finale of William's incredibly cold, calculated strategy. A new era defined by pure bloodlines and youth tossing the current consort aside like a ghost of the past. The one question haunting the dark halls of Buckingham Palace is simply this: what happens to Queen Camilla after June 13th? They have sidelined her so publicly and so brutally that clawing back to her former glory seems completely impossible now. Inside sources are already hinting that the Queen is plotting her very own countermove. Maybe a tactical retreat into private charity work, stepping away from the ruthless glare of William's brand new court. The 2026 protocol completely crushed her administrative power, while the new carriage assignments ripped away her last symbolic rank. Those bitter tears she cried back on May 15th, they have frozen into a very quiet, deeply resilient kind of sorrow. This is a woman who understands the game of power better than anyone, and she knows the tide has officially turned. The massive favor Charles just handed to William and Catherine is not some temporary phase. It is a permanent restructuring. The fragile king actually chose the raw strength of his son over the comfort of his own wife. As those final anthem notes echo over the crowd, the entire world will witness a monarchy that barely survived its crisis by completely sacrificing its own ancient traditions. Trooping the color 2026 will go down as the exact moment the House of Windsor chose pure survival over sentiment. The massive elevation of William to a level of near total absolute sovereignty, and Catherine becoming the indispensable heart of the throne. So, what do we learn? The new guard takes no prisoners. Let's dive into this royal drama. The bitter rifts, hidden tears, and secret decrees. There, the brutal price Charles pays for stability he thinks only his heirs can protect. As the royals retreat behind those famous glass balcony doors, the heavy doors of history are firmly slamming shut on the consort's era, finally making way for the prince's ultimate reign. Now pay attention. William has entirely snatched back the monarchy's main narrative, and his wild story is just beginning. The massive question remains, will Camilla figure out a clever way to survive this brutal power shift? Or will she completely fade into the cold gilded shadows of the very palace she fiercely fought to call home? The grand public parade is over, but the reign of the future, let's watch it begin.